Roads are places full of frightening stories where accidents, strange encounters, and paranormal activity take place very frequently. On this occasion, we will see a series of traumatic events that happen to people while driving on the roads at night. The Haunted Road. On a road east of Melbourne, Australia, Fay Knowles and his 3 sons were riding in an '84 Ford sedan. On their way, they had to cross the Nullarbor Plain. Connecting with southeastern Australia, this road extends from east to west for more than 1,000 kilometers and is a route with desert vegetation with a flat and arid terrain. For more than 100 kilometers, the Knowles family did not see a curve. They had to drive all night, and after 4 a.m., the family noticed an intense light far from the road. The 21-year-old son was driving, and everyone in the car thought it was a big truck coming from the front. However, the light made strange, unusual, and very frightening movements. The strange thing happened when the light magically vanished a few meters from the Knowles family's car. This terrified the family and especially Sean, the 21-year-old driver, who accelerated, watching the light disappear behind them. After this, something surprising happened. The light posed again in front of them, but at a shorter distance. This allowed them to notice that the light came from a flying object which was blinding them. The young Sean reacted, turning the car around and taking the opposite direction. The flying object followed them. It was behind them again. Later, Sean decided to change the route. However, the terrifying light did not leave them. At that moment, the family noticed something very strange. Everyone turned their head towards the ceiling and felt that something rested on them. Everyone panicked, and Mr. Knowles lowered the glass, pulled out his head, and looked up at the ceiling. What he saw was amazing. The roof was covered with black holes and burns. After that, the car was filled with a black fog and the smell of rotten flesh, accompanied by a creepy, sharp sound. The most mysterious thing about that encounter was the transformation of the voices of the family. They went from a strong tone to a lower, almost imperceptible tone. They were terrified, but it didn't end there. The flying object lifted the car in the middle of the road and took it a short distance from where they were. There, it hit the pavement, popping one of its tires. Luckily, Sean maneuvered the vehicle off the road so everyone could hide. They watched as the object landed on the car and then left at an incredible speed. Instantly, the whole family fled, looking for the nearest town. Luckily for everyone, they came across 3 witnesses who had also seen the flying object. They returned to the scene of what had happened, and one of the witnesses found something interesting. The marks of the landslide and the exploded tire could be seen. When the police came to interrogate them, they didn't believe them. They were very traumatized and convinced that what had happened was something very strange. This type of phenomena or encounters with extraterrestrials is not unique, since it is common in that plane of Nullarbor. They occur at every instant. Spiders on the road. A man and a woman were in their car on a road across Arizona, but when they were halfway there, they came across something incredible. In the distance, they noticed irregularities in the road, something that looked like living leaves. As they got closer to these leaves, they realized that they were indeed moving. As they passed over them, the car began to vibrate. When they saw what it was all about, they couldn't believe it. It was a migration of tarantulas. Thousands of them, one over the other, were crossing the road. This caused the van to slip and slow down. The woman panicked and asked to stop at the first stop they found. She, for nothing in the world, wanted to set foot on that terrain again. The woman covered in blood. Another frightening story on the road focuses on a young woman whose job was something away from home. The woman had a bad habit of falling asleep while driving. Her sister, worried about the situation, usually called her during the trip to talk to her and keep her awake. One day, in the middle of the conversation, the young woman who was driving the car began to scream. When she calmed down, she told her sister that she had seen a young woman covered in blood on the road. At that moment, she braked, got out of the car, and ventured toward the victim. The sister on the call heard the following: "No, my God, not you, not you. Help me, they will come back for me." At that moment, a truck in the distance slowed down, and the woman beckoned for help. The young woman covered in blood became even more desperate and begged the woman to leave. When the truck came to a complete stop, two men came down, one of which strangely sounded like a cat. The woman took the victim and helped her get into her car. She started the car and accelerated in despair, but the two men in the truck were following them, trying to get them off the road. She lost sight of them when she arrived at the nearest hospital and left the young woman with the doctors. The story was tragic after discovering what had happened. The girl had been abused and then tied up behind the truck and was probably subjected to even more atrocious acts. Witch on the Road. In this event, the protagonist is a truck driver who was driving at night. The man stopped for a moment to take a pill because he began to feel sick. He followed his route through the Tehuacan Road in Mexico, but when looking in his rearview mirror, he saw the unusual presence of a ball of fire. But in spite of this, the truck driver remained calm and continued to drive. But the fireball followed incessantly, causing nerves and making it difficult to drive. He concentrated, calmed, and continued, but the fireball began to take on a very strange shape, that of a woman. This one landed in front of him, blocking his vision and making it difficult to drive. As time passed, the fireball vanished into the trees of a nearby forest, and after a few seconds, terrifying screams were heard, which motivated the driver to accelerate without stopping. Some time later, he left the road and parked at a gas station. To his surprise, the same event had happened to 6 other truckers driving through the area. Those who know the story explain that they are witches who appear on that stretch of road. This compilation contains many events that happen on the highways. Every day there are more spooky and terrifying stories that we will tell little by little. So don't stop following us and find out about the most unusual cases that happen on the most important roads in the world.